Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rock and Roll Beer Guy podcast. This episode is brought to you by Audible. Audible is a service from Amazon that allows you to listen to audiobooks on any of your mobile devices. They have over 180,000 different books that you could choose from, different categories, different authors, beer, music, funny stories, comedy, art, anything like that. Super useful for when you're on the road, if you're a sales guy, or if you're sitting in an office and you have hours and hours to kill because you're sitting there doing data entry and you've listened to every single album you have. Or maybe you're brewing some beer and you want to just put in some headphones and listen to someone teach you a little bit more about the business. It's a great service. And if you sign up with audibletrial.com/RRBG, you'll get the 30-day free trial, you'll get a free audiobook, and you'll help out the podcast. Every single person that signs up, I get a little commission out of it, and I'll put it towards making the podcast better, getting better gear, stuff like that, paying for the SoundCloud service that I use to host the episodes. In this episode, we sit down with Leon Del Muerte. He's a guitar player for the band Nails. He also plays in bands like Exhumed, Murder Construct, Impaled, Terrorizer, and he used to be in Intronaut. He was one of the original members of Intronaut. We talk a lot about music, and we touch on beer and share a couple stories. It's a fun time. I hope you enjoy. Cheers. I already regret making the decision to do the podcast because I hate talking.
That seems like an integral part of the whole process.
Right. It's counterproductive to what I want to do with my life. Anyway, all right. Welcome to episode 6 of the Rock and Roll Beer Guy podcast. I'm here with Leon Del Muerte.
Hi.
Hi. I mean, are you keeping your last name private from the world?
My last name, or I mean, I use it at work, but
it's trying to stay under the radar, bro.
A little bit, maybe, but actually, it kind of started out as like a joke. It was a thing that in high school I was listening to the Brujeria album, and my English teacher was like, "What is that?" And I was like, "It's Mexican death metal." And he was like listening to it. He's like, "What? Really? Are they singing in Spanish?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "What? Is that what that is?" And he was like, totally blew his mind. And so when I went to class that day, he wrote on the chalkboard Leon Del Muerte, and like as a joke, and I mean, which is like totally bad Spanish too, and because he doesn't know shit. He's an English teacher, and like. That's where that came from. So just like from then on, I just always use that. So it wasn't really like I was trying to hide my name, but it's also sort of become that afterwards.
It's fine, man. It's much better than whatever last name anyone could have. I would rather be Eddie Del Muerte than that sounds like a wrestler name, you know?
Right.
Old Mexican lucha libre name.
Hell yeah.
So you play guitar in a lot of fucking bands.
Yeah, all of that.
Yeah, just to name, I mean, you're the touring guitarist for Nails.
Yep.
You're in Terrorizer.
L.A.
You're in L.A. Impaled, Exhumed, Murder Construct. I wanted to bring those up just because, like, usually when people are in different bands or have different projects, they tend to go to different genres. So I wanted to ask you, like, you're in a lot of these bands, obviously they're all different, but they kind of share similarities in their genre.
Right. Yeah. The only band out of most of the bands I've been in that's any different than the rest of them is probably Intronaut. I was in Intronaut from 2004 to 2007 or something, but that was me trying to, do something new and different. But yeah, I kind of stay in my wheelhouse there. I'm not so adventurous on that front. But I mean, I come and go in a lot of those bands too. Like I've been in and out of Exhumed over 20 years, like at least 3 or 4 times.
So how does that work with bands like that? I mean, I've never been I've always, for the 10 years or whatever I was doing music, most of it was in the same band. I had little projects here and there that I'd fuck around with, but
sure.
With bands like Exhumed, for example, like how does that end up working out where, hey, new album cycle, let's call Leon. Like how does that work out?
I've gotten lucky that like I think last time I toured with Exhumed, which was in 2011. Last time I toured, like I was not an Intronaut anymore. I think I kind of called it quits from Phobia at the time, and I don't think I was doing a whole lot. So I've kind of got lucky that it's like instead of like having to turn down a lot of things and kind of figure it out, I've been lucky that like it's come and filled the gaps and instead. And Impaled plays very rarely. And, since we've been doing that again, that's been about since 2013, I think. I just do vocals with them. So that's really easy. I just fly in and just do the damn thing. But yeah, most bands that I play with, none of them are hard touring bands, or at least I don't tour hard with them. Exhumed is a hard touring band. But that's why I haven't played with them in 6 years. But yeah, I've just kind of gotten lucky there.
Well, I was thinking more along the lines like because the way you said it, it sounded like you're in and out, as in sometimes like for example, when I saw Nails last before the time I saw it with you guys, you were with Terrorizer, and they had Phil on as a live guitarist, and
right.
I was wondering if it was something like that where like with Exhumed you have people come in take your spot for like a little bit, cover for you or whatever.
Yeah, with Nails is the only band we've really done that with. And Phil actually played with them a little bit before I did. But since I didn't want to do double duty with Nails and Terrorizer, we just did it that way instead, where I just played with Terrorizer, because otherwise Terrorizer wouldn't play at all. But yeah, I mean, no, not usually. Like if I can't do it, I usually just bow out. Like that's how I've been in and out of Exhumed so many times. Like when they start when they were in 2011, when I toured them last, we did 3 tours in Europe, and they were all totaled out to about 2 weeks, a little more than that. But it wasn't like a huge time commitment. But almost immediately after that, they went on tour for like another 2 years solid. And that was too much for me. Like I went back to work, and I just ended up kind of leaving them. It's kind of like at this point with almost all those bands, it's sort of like like a communal thing. Like they just like Phobia just gets who's available and plays with them. Like this last thing that we just did with Phobia, where they got me and Danny, that was mostly just because Shane was like wanted to change it up a little bit. He'd been working with some other people for a little while, and we'd done a record in 2006 or 7 or something like that, and he just wanted to give it a throw the other guys who hadn't done anything a bone, I guess. And, it was mostly just for fun, actually. Like, it wasn't like this super stressful thing. Oh, we got to write this out. Like, we went down there and like we've worked with each other so much and so often that like we were able to I went into the studio with only 2 songs written, and I left with 7. So, and then I think we left with like 21, 22 total, and almost all of them were written in the studio in that weekend. So, maybe
nice.
they're not going to be like fucking, sweeping epic fucking space.
8-minute progressive.
Yeah, exactly. But, they are definitely in the Phobia wheelhouse.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it was really cool to be able to come out and chill with you guys while you were working on that, and you're just fucking partying. And, Mitch was there, which is cool. Mitch from Maruda. He was just hanging out, right? He wasn't doing like a guest spot or something, was he?
No, although if we had known that he was gonna make it down, we probably would have made that happen. But I think by the time he showed up, we were already at the point where we were trying to. I think we were done. Like by the time you guys showed up.
Well, there you go, Mitch. If you're listening, next time, hit him up.
Show up earlier.
Cool, man. Well, to go back a little bit, you mentioned Intronaut. I wanted to bring that up because you're still friends with everybody, and
sure.
I wanted to know what was that, what happened with the departure. Like, I love Dave and everything, but just wondering, like, what was the situation that led to you guys splitting ways?
For one thing, a lot of it was on me. I didn't feel like I was at the same level as the rest of those guys, so I was like constantly sort of feeling like I was struggling with the material. I mean, it wasn't like it was like super difficult for me to play, but it was just something so different for me that at some point I was kind of like, I started kind of losing interest. Like I really wanted to go back to playing grindcore and stuff. Some of that was definitely because I was having a hard time with some of the music. But a lot of it was just that it was kind of so far out of my wheelhouse. Intronaut when I joined, like I was, me, Sasha, Danny, and Joe were the original founding members. Well, Sasha actually had some of the music before that even, but we joined. Like I had a different kind of vision for it, and wasn't really my band per se. It's really been Sasha's band this whole time, and so it wasn't like it was like a big dramatic thing, but it was just we started kind of drifting apart musically a little bit, and so it made sense. I wanted to go back and do Murder Construct again, and they wanted to kind of move on with somebody who was more into what they were doing.
Nice, yeah. All right, that makes sense, man. I mean, you gotta do what feels right,
Right.
no matter what. Yeah, it's funny. I remember one of the first times I met, well, not met, but hung out with Danny, because I met him. Fuck, I don't even. I don't really know. I talked about it when I talked to Sasha on the podcast, but I went up to Gainesville to see ISIS and Torch, and you guys were opening.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah, that was the last tour. I think that was the last tour I did with them. Yeah, yeah. I was.
Yeah.
I remember because Gainesville was like the only bad show. Oh, it wasn't a bad show, but it wasn't. It was the least good show of that tour, and people were playing ISIS and shit. And I just remember Aaron Turner was he's a pretty mellow guy, not very confrontational, and that was the only time that whole tour where he just kind of like turned to some guy who was in the crowd heckling and said, "Shut the fuck up" or something.
Yeah.
That was a weird night.
Yeah, man, that was a rough night. I remember I was standing next to the guy that was yelling shit at the band. He was yelling like song titles or something, like, oh, play whatever, like whatever song. I don't even remember what song I wanted, but
yeah.
I remember being pissed off at the guy, just kind of like, shut the fuck up and listen, and then fucking Aaron actually turned on him. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, right. I wasn't expecting it either.
Yeah, but yeah, that's when I first heard Intro. I was kind of, I heard you guys, I was blown away, and I just started following, like, okay, well, next time they're in Florida, I'm going to go see them. And it was a while before they came back down, but hung out with Danny, talked to him for a bit. He's like, yeah, check out my other band, gave me the Murder Construct CD.
Sure.
Like, for free. He was like, here you go. I'm like, shit, I'll buy it.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, it was really cool to hear that, and just I was kind of into grindcore, just not like as much as I am now.
Sure.
Just listening to Murder Construct at first, I'm like, man, this is aggressive as fuck.
Right.
Like, I can process about 3 or 4 songs at a time.
Sure.
Back then,
Sure.
and because
Yeah.
back then too, I was in this like super proggy mode. I was like jamming out to Between the Buried and Me and Animals as
Sure.
Leaders and all that stuff. So I was in a different zone, and then a couple years passed, and I just went back to the aggression and like the roots of where I started with punk music and being heavy, and
Sure.
playing in the Vultures Are Wolves, which is like, I don't even know what to call it. It's not really grindy, but it's loud and ragey and violent and fast.
Distorted, I imagine.
Yeah, super distorted and fucking violence and satanic rituals.
Sounds excellent.
Cool, man. So talking about heavy music, a lot of these heavier bands, including myself, I mean, I've done that, but I'm not per se like the best example because I listen to all kinds of shit. I'm Cuban too, so I'll listen to salsa and Latin jazz and whatever. But some of the heavier dudes that we know that have side projects that are a lot softer and melodic and like
Sure.
electronic even. Like Chino from Deftones with the multiple projects he has, and
Right.
now, Greg now with Dillinger and his Black Queen project. So, how do you feel about that? Like, would you ever end up doing something like that, or are you just gonna grind for the rest of your life?
Yeah, I mean, in my spare time, I write stuff that's not as heavy. I try to stay like a well-rounded musician, even though live in particular, I kind of stay, like I said, in my wheelhouse. But yeah, I mean, I like that kind of stuff too. I mean, I don't listen. I do still listen to a lot of old death metal and stuff like that. But I mean, I'm also just as likely to listen to like Molotov Statke or fucking shitty folk music from the '60s or whatever. So I can appreciate that. Doing something different than your day job, I guess.
For sure. I would say, is it because we get old? Is it the old age that makes us do that shit? Or like, I'm just I'm not that angry today.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I gotta save anger a little bit. I gotta, like, for when I want to write aggressive music. That's I gotta I don't necessarily plan it out. I'm gonna get pissed off at 7:00 tonight. But I mean, when I get mad, that's when I fucking grab my guitar. And then like, there's other times I'm just, I have a guitar in my office at work, and I just, strum around it. Like I usually start running scales and stuff just to, kind of warm up, and then I don't know, like depending on what I was listening to earlier that day, I'll try playing, I studied with a jazz guy for a year and a half. This guy, Jason Schimmel from the band Stratosphere, and his new band, Atomic 8. And I studied with him the year and a half before I left LA. And so I learned a lot about jazz and music in general. And stuff that I like, so I dick around with that a little bit. I haven't really written full songs, but I've written, a lot of little pieces of music that could potentially be songs at some point, but I have no real intention of kind of putting them together that way. It's just fun for me to play,
For sure, for sure. You keep mentioning you've mentioned, I don't know if you want to talk about it, but your day job or your work. So what do you do when you're not grinding people's faces off?
I'm a project manager at DreamHost. We're a web hosting company.
A what company?
A web hosting company.
Web host. Okay.
Yeah, basically we just store all the. I actually just switched jobs there. I've been there for it'll be 10 years in August. But I used to be the data center manager. I used to work strictly with hardware for the last 8-something years, and then just in January I moved over to project management, which is a different kind of beast and something that I'm learning a lot about. I've got a crash course in project management right now. Basically, by being assigned projects and then not knowing how to do my job and figuring it out. So I'm winging it daily, but it's I'm getting to write my own job also a little bit.
Is that a office that you go to? Like are you in like a building filled with other people and tables and desks and stuff?
Yeah, like I said before, when I worked at the hardware, I worked in an underground facility in an office with 2 other guys, and then now I work on the 14th floor of a building downtown Portland. Where I have my own office basically, and there's other people there, and I don't necessarily need to do my job from an office, but I find that a separation of home and work works for me a little better.
Yeah. When you work from home, it can get stressful to be at home later when you just want to relax.
Right.
Yeah, like right now I'm kind of facing that since I'm not currently with a brewery, so I'm just kind of doing all this podcast stuff and doing a lot of writing at home.
Sure.
So I find myself at like 8:00 on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, like I'm gonna go see Danny at Fern's. And I'm gonna drink 5 shots of whiskey and get the fuck out of my house because I did the whole office work for a long time and as well, and I can't. I realized that I was raging out at work, and at the time I didn't even realize what I was doing. But,
sure.
Like talking to some people afterwards, after I had left that company, they're like, dude, you were blasting metal in an office with 12 other people.
Right.
And screaming at like boxes of paperwork because I was doing data entry shit for the courts.
Mm-hmm. Oh, did you work for KPMG or whatever they're called?
Oh, it was a process serving company. Yeah. So we would sit there and input all this, these court cases into the system or whatever to create the papers that we would then go serve. And
sure.
But yeah, I mean, it got to that point. Like I hated my bosses; they were the fucking worst human beings.
Yeah.
And just slimy. You know what I mean? Like we're in there grinding overtime and they're out, Ferraris and fucking cruises and shit like that.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah, that shit'll grind you down pretty quick.
Yeah. So they would bring out boxes of paperwork to me. I'd fucking kick them over and throw the boxes and shit. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm just, I'm raging out, but I'm having a good time. And everybody around me is having a good time, right? And apparently not. It was kind of scary for them.
They were just scared. You just terrified them.
Yeah, so that's when I realized I don't belong in this place. I got to get out of it. I can't do office work.
Right.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, moving back into an office was, I thought it would be weirder, but the company that I work for is really good. It's a very employee-centric company. And, this is like in August, I'll hit 10 years there. And that's by far the longest I've ever worked anywhere. So,
wow, that's 10 years is a lot, man.
Yeah. So, I definitely wouldn't be there if I hated it. When I was on tour, 3 to 6 months out of the year, I would just work contract jobs. I didn't give a fuck how they treated me because I knew I was just going to be leaving at the end of it anyway. This company actually was the one that made me decide that yeah, maybe staying home and not touring every day of my life is a good idea.
Well, but you do still do a significant amount of travel, at least more than most
Yeah,
people.
yeah. Luckily enough, with Nails, like I'm pretty fortunate that that band is like they're well treated. Like we fly out, do a show, and then fly home. It's like Todd's in the same similar situation as me, so he can't stay out on tour for a year at a time. So basically, I walked into almost an ideal situation in that one.
Yeah. Speaking of that, well, actually, one more thing about the office work thing before I
Sure.
move on. Are you wearing a suit?
No.
Okay. Like I don't
I
think I
look
can see
exactly
you.
No, yeah, I look exactly the same as you see me, as you've ever seen me, like pretty much. I have utterly no. I think basically our only dress code is that your dick can't be hanging out. That's about it.
I think that's a dress code for life
Yeah,
in
exactly.
general. Shit. So okay, Nails. I was gonna say there was a lot of confusion on the interwebs
Sure.
about what happened to Nails shortly after I saw them at the Roxy,
Right.
where a lot of people were like, "Oh, they're broken up," and then Todd came out saying like, "No, they're not." So I never really got the story. I don't even because I don't. I saw the headlines. I'm like, "Oh, that sucks," and then I saw the other headline like, "Hey, we're not." I'm like, "Okay, that doesn't suck. I'll go see them."
Right.
Like I didn't really do research about it. I was just
Yeah, I'm not sure that there was like a lot of public discussion about it. I just think that people get burnt out. When you got Todd has a family to take care of. The band is second to is a secondary force in his life. So I won't presume to speak for him, but I assume, and I never really asked him what it was about. It was just understood that if these guys want to do it, then I'm down. If not, then that's fine too. But I assume that it was basically family, just life got in his way, and he had to deal with some stuff. So I don't know what it
yeah.
is. I never really, like I said, I never bothered to ask. I try not to pry into people's personal affairs.
Right, right.
Yeah, I just think he just wanted to take a break, basically.
Cool. Yeah, I can hear it, man. And the music that you guys do is very aggressive and definitely draining
Sure.
from a human being, especially when you also need to be home and take care of a kid and
Right.
keep a normal life. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, it's tough for
so
sure. There's people don't realize that they think that, playing in a band is just sitting in a van or sitting in a tour bus all day, having groupies suck your dick. And
yeah,
it's just,
or partying, bro.
right. Like half those guys don't really party at all, and so it's not like that. And I mean, most professional bands that I know, those guys, I mean, they are even in death metal bands, like those guys don't necessarily party it up, like they did when they were kids anymore either. They're touring for them, bands that tour 200 days out of the year. Like they don't spend 200 days on the road drinking and stuff like that either.
Yeah, yeah. I've shown pictures to my fiance. Like, sometimes we're out at a show and it's a late night or something, and I'm like, look, I'm not gonna be home till 2, 3, 4 in the morning, whatever we're done. And she'll hit me up midway through that, thinking like, oh, he's out partying, being stupid. And I'll just send her a picture of everyone on their phones or their laptops, just kind of like skyping with their family or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
this is the party.
Backstage is, it's I remember like on this when Terrorizer toured in 2015 in Europe. I think like somewhere in the midpoint of that tour, we were in Vienna, and the local band there, really really nice kids. I think their band was called Melmosh. I can't remember, but oh no, actually this was Nauseous. This is like 2014 or 2013. I can't remember when we were in Europe, and we were just at that point of the tour where we were just tired of drinking and like tired of just not partying at all, and just sitting there backstage, and those guys came back and they're just like, wow, like holy shit, like you guys just look so bummed right now. We're like, oh no, we're doing fine, just like have a beer or two before you go on. Like nobody wants to go out, well, nobody wants to see a band go play where everybody's fucking smashed and shit and they can't do it. So
Yeah.
it's, you set your priorities as you go along, I guess. But yeah, they were just saying, what do we do before having our phones? It's like, it's a good question. I think we partied a lot more back then, maybe.
Oh, for sure, man. Back then it was a lot more drinking and talking, because
Right.
we had to. Now people are talking on their phones via Facebook or whatever. Back then
Exactly.
people were talking to themselves, and people are miserable and hate each other. So alcohol is a good way to get people to talk to each other.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Liquid courage.
Liquid courage, for sure. It's social lubricant, as I
Exactly.
believe. Yeah, yeah. Talking about, I put a note here, like the losing a tooth at nails. That was fun.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, because you're talking about how physically draining that type of music is. It's also draining,
As a fan,
as a fan when you get kicked right in the mouth.
man, I saw that all happen too. I was standing like directly above you. There was that chick just whipped herself right into you.
Yeah, dude, that shit. I just remember I didn't feel it at all. I just because I've been hit in the face multiple times, but
Sure.
look, it just get hit, and I'd look down. I'm like, well, fuck, my glasses and my hat are gone.
Right.
And then I find those magically. I don't know. Some people probably found them and gave them to me. I was like, oh, cool stuff. Put it back on. Go outside, and it was just the wobbly tooth just hanging barely
Oh man, it's brutal.
in my gums. And I'm like, I
Uh,
could just let it. What do I do? Do I let it ride? And my buddy's like, just pull it
yeah,
out. I'm like,
yeah,
shit.
it's
So I
gotta
just
come out.
fucking just yanked it out of my mouth. Started bleeding everywhere. I was like, good
Works.
times. It's a good nails show if you're bleeding.
Right.
So, oh fuck. Going to, let's see, guitars. So you do sing in Impaled, right?
Yeah, I've sung in Exhumed, Impaled. I've done backups in vocal or in Phobia and Murder Construct, and I've sung in a lot of bands. But yeah, guitar is my main instrument. But I like doing vocals too.
What got you? What would you say would be your first memory of guitar? Like, why did you want to do it?
When I was a kid, I always wanted to play guitar. My brother plays guitar, my mom plays guitar, my father plays guitar a little bit. Everybody in my family plays some. My sister actually has the most talent out of all, most natural raw talent. She just picked up a guitar and just was able to play it, which was really weird for me and my brother. But she also plays guitar at least. But I was around it all the time. But I actually did not want to play guitar when we moved to California in 1990. On March 2nd, 1990, I remember when I went to my first music class at school, they were like, what do you play? And I wanted to play drums. And so she sat me down behind the drum set and she's like, you know how to play drums? And I was like, no. And she's like, okay, go sit with the guitar players. And that's basically how it started.
Wow, nice.
Yeah. I mean, we had guitars at home, so it was really easy to just, pick up guitar and just start playing. And, eventually, I mean, before I started playing guitar, like when I was a little kid, I would like cut guitars out of like foam and shit and like, pretend like I had all these guitars and stuff. So I was like, I always kind of wanted to play an instrument. I always wanted to be in a band. Just kind of that. I was just gonna say that never really abated. It's always been kind of like a thing for me.
Well, I was gonna say, so like when I first got my guitar, I'm not a guitar player at all, but the first time I decided to buy an instrument on my own was a guitar,
Sure.
and I learned a handful of songs that I really liked, really stupid songs. But would that be the case with you? Are there a few songs that you like, the first few songs you learned to play on the guitar, that influenced you to want to do your own shit?
Well, actually, maybe it was because it was in spite of the songs that I learned when I first, because I was, like I said, I was in a public school music class. And so, they made us learn songs that were in a songbook, like "Hang Your Head, Tom Dooley."
Oh Jesus, okay.
Yeah, shit like that. And so, I mean, that's like one of my earliest memories of is learning, at least so far as playing, is learning that song and shit like that. And our teacher, Mrs. Whitney, she kind of just let us do whatever we wanted. She had like a full woodwind and brass band that would like, she had stand up bass, blah, blah. Like she had the students that she really was into and the guitar player, she just kind of left alone. She'd come over and check on us and just be like, what are you guys working on? And we'd be like, we're learning how to play tequila. And she's like, oh God, like, okay, well, good luck with that. So that's another early song and so like we were learning how to play that and Bad to the Bone and stuff like that. And she let us play those songs in like a talent show for school. And so yeah, I mean, before I figured out how to play, metal songs, I guess. I don't know. That only lasted for a little while. At some point, I'd run into my friend Jared Deaver, he was another guy, and we didn't really know each other at school, but he would just, every time, I had this big headbangers ball jacket and a mullet, so he, recognized his kin there. And
Nice.
he would yell out at me like, "Headbanger!" And so basically we got to talk, and he played guitar. He wanted to have a metal band. Like both of us were, I guess it's more like when I was like 14 or something. So I'd been playing for like a couple of years, and we were both into like, Metallica and Megadeth, and we're just starting to get into death metal and, hearing like more extreme stuff. But yeah, basically when I started playing with him, my first band, Infanticide, we formed in, must have been like 91 or 92, and had our first show around there. Played like a handful of shows, and then split up. But it's like after being in a real band and having like that kind of camaraderie with like the four other guys in my band, where we would just hang out all the time, that just like totally cemented it for me. Like I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to play in a fucking band all the time, like without fail. And I've done that. Like it's been more than 2 decades that I've gone more than a couple months without being in a band or something.
That's awesome, dude. That's not a lot of people get to do that. Like, establish that from a young age and say, this is what I'm going to do, and actually go through with it.
Right.
Because a lot of people, like I wanted to be a computer engineer because I love computers.
Sure.
And then I got to college, and I'm like, well, fuck this shit.
Yeah,
Are you serious?
It's hard as hell.
Oh my god, no. But yeah, it's. My introduction into bands shit was weird. I ended up going to local shows nearby, and I wasn't doing anything musically at the time, but I was just going to support local, like my friends' bands, and I loved music as a fan. So there was this one local band in Miami that, their singer would have issues every once in a while, where like he got super sick a lot, and couldn't play the show or something. And one night they came up to me like, dude, you're at every show. You know all the songs. Can you sing a couple songs?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, dude. Yeah, I'll fucking do it. Let's go.
It's like the Ripper Owens story here. Like you got to join your favorite band.
Right. And I mean, they weren't like my favorite band. It was just I liked them a lot, but we were mostly just it was just my buddies. And dude, yeah. I got up there. We did the show. We did a couple songs, and I remember just the crowd reacting and moshing, and like I was just like, what the fuck? What is this feeling?
Right.
Oh my!
Yeah, it's pretty singular. You don't know what that feeling is until you've experienced it. A lot of people can guess at what it's like to play a show, but it's a whole different thing to actually get up there and do it.
Yeah, man, and it's also, there's a difference between playing like in your garage in front of 3 or 4 of your friends, or like you get a local gig, like we're gonna play a show, and you get there and there's 5 people, like. The difference is when you get to a show where you're performing in front of a larger group of people, and you're just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, right.
This is different. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely. I mean, I actually get more nervous when I play shows in front of less people these days, because I feel like that's really when you kind of have to, like, you cannot fucking blow it whatsoever. When there's a billion, there's like a ton of people there, it's like, yeah, whatever, fuck it. That's, for some reason in my mind, it's totally backwards. It's way harder for me to play smaller shows than it is to play like more intimate shows, I guess, than it is to play a bigger show.
Sure. Yeah, I would agree with you though. I mean, the bigger shows that we've played, I've been super comfortable, mostly because I just get numbed out. Like,
sure.
it's you just there's lights in your fucking face. There's people. There's just a ton of people there, and you just I can't really focus on any of them, so it all just becomes a blur. I'll maybe grab like one dude in the audience that I see is like really excited, and like go towards him and fucking throw the mic at him or something, or fucking grab him.
Sure.
Like, hey man, thank you for actually knowing words.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, that's so. Did you do any cover shit early on? Like,
no,
just kind of get your, you just immediately went into original shit?
Yeah, straight into it. Like, we never, to this day, I don't know that many covers. Like, I know a ton of, I probably know a million riffs from a million different songs, but I don't know very many, like, entire covers. We just started out with, like I said, my first band, Infanticide, we just started writing our own terrible music right off the bat. There wasn't any, there wasn't any like, there was no covers and stuff like that. Like, we may have done stuff like that I can't really remember, but I really don't recall like ever really doing covers and stuff. Like, never really got into to like. I mean, other than when I've actually played in bands that are specifically doing covers, but which is actually God, that's only really happened well, unless I mean I guess it depends on which side of the fence you fall on with Terrorizer. Some people think that we are a Terrorizer cover band, but other than that, you know, God, I can't think of like I don't think I ever did a cover until I first was in Exhumed, and Harv really likes doing like he'll always like to do like a Venom cover. Like back then, we would always throw in one cover on whatever we were doing, and that was probably the first time I'd ever learned any covers.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I when I started getting serious about doing bands and like, okay, this is what I want to do. That was the first thing I did because it was the easiest fucking thing to do for me. Like, hey, we're gonna play a couple Deftones songs, at a party. We'll just show up at a party,
Right.
set up, play. We'll play a couple Deftones songs. We'll play a couple fucking Metallica songs or something easy, and that's it.
Sure.
And then that kind of transposed into the actual, like once we started, I joined the Sever and we started doing like original songs and stuff. After we wrote a handful of songs, I'm like, I want to cover a Nails song, like not you guys, but 9 Inch Nails.
Sure.
And we ended up doing like a super heavy cover of a 9 Inch Nails song, and that's always been a thing though for me because I don't know, I feel that yes, the crowd is paying or the fans are there to see you and your music, but if it's something that you've been doing for a while and you throw in like, hey, here's something that we all enjoy,
Right.
and we fucking you can enjoy it with us, and you actually know the lyrics because it's not new music that you've never heard.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I would actually like to do more covers. I'd like to learn more covers. I'd like to sit down and I don't know, when I sit down, I feel like sometimes I feel like I have to be productive, and learning a cover is counterproductive, but it's really not. Like it's really
It would be practice.
exactly when you practice, when you learn how somebody else does something, it's and that is learning and something I should do a lot more of. But I don't know. I've never really. It's not because I dislike it. I honestly wish I could, like. I actually did at one point try to start a band that was all covers. It was called Disengraved. The dis was from Dismember. The en was from Entombed. Grave from the band Grave, and the ed from Unleashed. So Disengraved. So it's Dismember, Entombed, Unleashed, and Grave. And like I learned 12 songs, like 3 from each of those bands, and it was great. Like finally just sitting down and learning some of like my favorite songs ever written, and just like how much different some of their writing. I mean, a lot of the shit that I've written is aping those bands pretty hard, but some of the shit that they've written, was like, oh, this is totally not the way I would have gone with this song. And, that's a learning thing too. Like just hearing somebody go take a left where you would have taken a right,
For sure, yeah, and it helps you grow as a musician for sure, in your writing process. Yeah, I mean that's. I've never taken any kind of classes except for when I was really young. I took keyboard, like piano classes, but I wouldn't say I'm some kind of fucking penis. I'm not. I'm. Yeah. No. I play keyboards, but I'm no penis.
Sure.
Hey.
Hey.
But yeah, no. When it comes to singing, I never took any kind of classes or anything. So I owe anything that I do that people enjoy. I owe it all to me singing other people's shit and like learning different techniques from them, and then kind of making an amalgam of all those techniques into my own voice. All right. So this is the Rock and Roll Beer Guy podcast. So I'm going to talk a little bit about beer.
Excellent.
Yes. Are you a beer geek or are you a casual beer drinker?
These days I'm a little more casual, but I used to definitely be more of a geek about it. And I hate to say, oh, well, it's like saying, well, I'm not punk anymore, but I still definitely nerd out about beer with certain people. But I found that my tastes have changed a little bit, where I used to be like, I was always looking for really high percentage. Like I was really into Trappist beers, like just all the I guess there's only 7 real Trappist breweries or something like that. Like that kind of stuff was all I would drink for a while. And it was like, that turned the thing is with drinking that shit, it's like you have like 3 of those and you're fucking blitzed, and it's like your night is over. So at some point I kind of shifted towards more session style beers where I like to hang out and drink for a while instead of just being like passed out or pissing my pants by like, 4 beers into it.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, it's become a thing. I tried to mold it in a way because I enjoy drinking socially a lot, and I also enjoy the crazy high end like 12
Of
percenters.
course.
So, like, my favorite thing to do now is just bottle share with like bands or whatever. Like, I'll show up at a show. I'll bring some drinking beers, just some regular pale, whatever.
Sure.
But I also would bring, 5 or 6 crazy bottles, like barrel aged stuff or sours or something like that. We can,
Sure.
amongst like 7 or 8 of us, we all take a couple ounces, enjoy something crazy, but not get smashed,
Right.
like
Yeah.
in the process.
Yeah, no, I like that too. Like I would like, I find as I go, like, and of course in Oregon and Portland especially, there's a lot of beer here, and beer is ridiculously cheap compared to Southern California. But there's a lot of places here where you can get. I've been doing sours and stuff. I like sours a lot and barrel aged stuff. Not crazy about, but every now and again you'll come across something that's just so weird and different. I always will get a beer that I've never had before, usually first. Like if it's a beer that I've never heard of,
Hmm.
or never, or a style or something I've never, something I'm not that familiar with, like goes and I don't know, like
Yeah.
trying to think. I mean, up here there's a lot of other weird shit that I've like Cascadian black ales and stuff like that, like stuff that I'm not that familiar with. That's usually the kind of thing I'll try out first, and then I'll kind of mellow out after that because I don't want to run out of steam super early.
Right. Now, when you say you're beer geeky, like, have you been on a lot of like brewery tours? How
I've
familiar
never
are you with the brew process?
I'm a little familiar with the brew process. There was a time when I thought I might do that. So I started reading up on it, but I never really got to the point where I felt comfortable doing it. But I've never done a brewery tour, but I've been to, I was going to say several, but really more like a handful of the bigger breweries like Firestone Walker, Arrogant Band,
Stone?
Stone,
Yeah.
excuse me. Fuck, I'm trying to think of them off the top of my head. Here, there's 10 Barrel and Rogue.
Yeah. There's some good ones out there like Cascade.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good beer here. People are very nerdy about their beer by default here.
Well, I mean, Portland, I mean, obviously there's a whole show about how hipstery Portland can be.
Right.
And, I would have to say, yeah, the beer scene out there is definitely one of the top in the world. Between them, Denver, obviously San Diego, and now Florida, which is crazy. It's fucking
Really?
popping up on the radar. But
That's a
yeah, there's a couple. It's a couple really big breweries, making a splash, if you would call it
Mhm.
that. But so you have been to a few breweries, and you said you wanted to homebrew, or were you thinking about like going full production brewing?
No, just homebrew because I have a friend, this guy Brett in LA who homebrews, and his beer was amazing. It was so good. And another friend of mine who actually he's from the Bay Area, but he lives here now. This guy Jinx, it wasn't like a production brewery, but they had a small bar, like a speakeasy.
brew pub.
Yeah, well, it was only open after shows. We would always go there when like after we got out of shows. I think it might have been in his house, which was in a warehouse, and it was called Spiritus Chimicus. I don't know that they ever bottled anything, but they had their own beer at their little speakeasy, and that shit was great too. So that's kind of what made me want to try it, but it just turns out I'm not sure that I have the discipline for it. That and it's like I would want to drink it on day one, so I'm not sure that it would ever like pan out for me.
Right, right. I mean, a lot of people get confused on that. More of in the novice sense, where they go to like American Apparel and buy one of those Brooklyn homebrew kits where
Sure.
you make a gallon of beer at home.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly fine, man. And anything to get you involved in the process and get a small sample of what it's actually
Right.
like to brew beer. But yeah, myself included, I've always wanted to open up a brew pub or something, but I wouldn't be the brewer. I
Sure.
would not be the brewer.
Yeah.
I can't. I mean, I've done plenty of brewing at like Cigar City and just modern times. Like just go do like just what they call brew day, where you just help out with a batch of beer that they've already established.
Sure.
just to kind of get familiar with the process. And I realized, no, that's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
I don't want to be fucking mashing in every day in front of this boiling hot water.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I'd rather be on the drinking end of that scale.
Yeah. And I mean, I like coming up with ideas for beers because I've been drinking for a while, and I've done my time. I've been in the industry for years, you know, so I can come up with like what I want in the beer, and I could tell the brewer specifically like grains. I want these grains. I want these hops. I want, you know, we're gonna do this in secondary fermentation. We're gonna rack them up and you know, put them in these barrels. And I know the entire process, but I don't want to do it.
Yeah. It's a chore, you know. It's like when you can just go ahead and drink it, you know. What's the point of sitting around waiting for it? I want to say like the guy in LA who was, you know, it would take him weeks before he had like a drinkable brew, you know. So if not longer,
minimum it's 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like,
man, that's just, I don't know that I have that kind of patience.
Yeah, it's like, man, I could really use a beer, and then you have to pull out all the equipment and start boiling water, running hoses through your apartment or house or whatever. And I mean, doing 5-gallon batches is not too bad.
Sure.
Doesn't require a lot of equipment, but yeah, you just need time to let it sit 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
Thankfully, there are a lot of breweries making beer that you could drink in the
meantime.
Yeah. So what would you say is your favorite style? You were saying you're now more into the lighter side of things, but
sort of
overall,
my favorites tend to be like not really hoppy beers anymore. Like I did go through I guess it was a pretty long phase where I liked really hoppy beers and stuff. But at this point, you know, like Kolsch's, Alts, and stuff like that. Those are kind of the things that I generally gravitate toward. Although very recently, in like the last couple months, I guess, like I've been into stouts and porters. I've never liked stouts and porters before until I moved here, and they have a lot of them here. So I've been really getting into that. Chocolate porters and chocolate stouts and stuff like that. I mean, that shit's basically for children, but it's so goddamn good. Sam Smith's chocolate porter that shit just tastes like chocolate milk. It's ridiculous. Like I never thought I would like something like that, never. But
it's adult chocolate milk for sure.
Yeah, it really is. It's fucking great.
Yeah, I mean, I talk to people about beer all the time. You know, when I'm on the streets with, you know, working the industry, and I hear people like that. Like, why the fuck would I ever want to drink a chocolate beer? It's like, well, try it.
Yeah,
you know.
Have fun. Yeah.
Don't just say no right away.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I would have. You know, I still feel like that way about like, you know, lambic type beers and stuff, like you know, fruit beers. But you know, even before I ever went to Belgium and stuff, like I was like, oh come on, this is goofy. And then it's like, no, this is amazing. Like these lambics and fruit beers and stuff. And like, you know, it's like, you know, don't close yourself off to any experience, I guess, and give it at least one shot before you shit on it.
Right. Exactly. Take a sip and okay, no thanks. And,
yeah, exactly.
Not my thing. That's why I try to do that to my girl. She doesn't like coffee, and like every time I make a cup or something, like if I have a beer that has coffee in it, I'm like, hey, take a sip. She's like, you know, I hate coffee. It's like, just take a sip, because you never know when the day is gonna come. Because when I drank coffee back when I was younger, it was all sugar and milk,
right?
And like you know, lattes, macchiatos, all that shit. Now it's like I want the strongest, most bitter, black, fucking disgusting coffee you can bring me.
Right. Yeah.
And
your taste evolved over time, you know.
Right. And so I tell her, I'm like, yeah, you might think it's gross, but maybe one day you wake up and you're like, oh wait, this is actually you know, awesome.
Yeah, I'm with her though. I hate coffee. I'm not a fan.
Oh shit. Okay.
My wife, she loves coffee, but
I need to have coffee daily.
I believe it, man. I understand the need for caffeine in the morning, but coffee's never been one for me. I worked in a coffee shop when I was first in Exhumed, and I like had a bad experience. So I burnt my hand I'm making a latte or something. So I don't know, maybe it's just bitterness or something.
Well, yeah, that happens to a lot of people in different industries. Like, you know, you work at Starbucks or something, you start hating coffee, or, you know, you work as a gynecologist and you can't look at vagina anymore.
Right.
Yeah. But I would have to thank my grandmother for that, because I remember one of my earliest memories is me drinking out of a bottle, like milk bottle, drinking coffee with milk
Oh, okay.
as a child.
Sure.
And I'm talking
Started you
like,
down that long road there.
oh my God, like 5 years old. My grandma's like, yeah, it's fine. It's just café con leche. And I'm like, yeah, it's just a drug you're shoving into this child. No problem. No problem at all. Shit, man. So speaking of big high percentage beers that we were talking about, are you aware of the fucking like chug videos that exist?
I mean, I've seen the video of I've seen a couple, like more than a few videos of dudes like drinking entire bottles of Jack Daniels, which like to me it's
Oh yeah.
the worst thing that is like a fate worse than death. To me, that shit's so gross. Fuck.
Well, I mean that's a terrible thing, and it's obviously insanely bad for you. But
Right.
I get offended because now there's a bunch of videos of dudes chugging these high percent beers, and it pisses me off. Not because the whole point that they're doing it is to piss people off and saying like, "Ha, here's this hard to get beer.
Right.
Watch me chug the whole fucking thing." You know what I mean?
Yeah, like
But it upsets me of just how much work went into making that
right
beer.
for
And
somebody
you're
to not
just
even
fucking,
appreciate it.
yeah, you're not even tasting it. Are you
You
serious?
son
Like,
of a bitch. Yeah.
you fucking asshole.
Yeah.
Like, that's so much blood, sweat, and tears that went into that beer. Months of waiting, because see, 2 weeks is what it takes to just make a beer. But most of these barrel aged beers that you drink or are out in the market and shit, they're sitting in barrels for months.
Sure.
You know,
Right.
6 months minimum for me is like it has to sit. And for bourbon, if you want your beer to pick up any kind of bourbon flavor, you need to leave it for more than 6 months. A lot of these dudes pull the trigger early. They're like, 2 months. No,
Sure.
let it fucking sit for
Right.
more than 6 months.
Marinate.
It needs to pick up all those flavors, man. Like, don't rush it.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, I know the need, I know the desire to be on point with it. All the other breweries, like, I need to have my barrel aged stout too.
Right.
But fucking do it
Yeah,
right.
let
you
it
know?
happen naturally.
God, everybody wants everything like right away, and I guess it's convenience. The era that we're in, with Netflix and everything, like
Right.
everything's instantaneous. So
Sure.
I guess that's what we've built a culture around. But
Right. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
it's terrible, but yeah. I've actually been in the opposite situation where a friend of mine he loves, I mean, I don't know that if Pliny the Elder is still a hard to find beer in Southern California, but Pliny is.
it is.
It is. Okay. It is plentiful in San Francisco. Like you can, from my recollection anyway, you could find it at, God, I can't remember the name of this bar, but there's a bar that I used to go to all the time.
Tornado?
Tornado's probably one of them. Sacrifice, it used to be called. It might be something else now. Had like a weird tiki thing, but they had Pliny in there. And I'm like, I had a friend in LA who was like, I was back up there visiting. I'm from the Bay Area. And he was, telling me, if you get some Pliny, bring it down there. And I did the exact kind of opposite, where I was just like taking every picture of every glass that I drank. I'm like sending it to him just to be a fucking dick. And I'm like pouring a little bit of it out, like making it look like I'm dumping it out and shit and being a total asshole.
This is for my homies. Oh man, yeah. I mean, it's hard. It's obviously it makes its appearances, but they usually sell out in like a couple hours or whatever.
I'm not totally impressed with Pliny. It's a fine beer. There's nothing wrong with it, but I didn't think it was like a mind blowing experience. I mean, also because I've had it before. I think people thought it was like and not like I just happened to be in the right place at the right time on that. That wasn't like something that I sought out, but I'd had it and I was like, oh, this is good. Whatever, fine. But when people are just like, oh my God, they're like going down to Ramirez Liquors and like hoarding the bottles of that shit. And I was like, give me a fucking break, man. Like there's other beers that taste just like this.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about IPAs that are doing that to people. Like one big thing now down here is, pretty much everywhere, but I see it down here because I'm here, is the rush of breweries that are releasing these 4-pack IPA cans. Mm-hmm. And people lining up at 4 a.m. to go get it.
Ridiculous.
And, like freaking out over an IPA. And I don't get that. Like, dude, there are so many breweries making solid IPAs.
Everybody makes an IPA, and if you don't have a solid IPA offering, you don't. I don't even like IPAs. I'm not. I don't hate them. I've had far too many, and now they give me heartburn, and so I don't tend to drink them as much. But I mean, if you're brewing beer and you can't make a solid IPA, you don't have any fucking business in the business, I guess.
Right. For sure. And there's so many different offerings, man. And for people to freak out like that, it just kind of like, really, guys?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Like Pliny, I'm with you on Pliny. I like it. Fresh, when it's fresh, it's awesome. Sure. But so is, Orderville from modern times when it's fresh. Or, any of the multiple IPAs that Monkish or, Firestone makes good IPAs. Sure. Everyone. So there's no need to freak out.
Yeah. I mean, people want to, it's like and I mean, I do this too with other things too. I hoard guitars and shit like that. And so I understand that impulse, but it's like everybody wants to be a nerd about something. And I kind of feel like you got to pick and choose your battles. You can make more IPAs. You can't make more of these fucking shitty guitars from the 80s.
Right. Yeah. I think my problem is I'm a nerd for too many things. I love music. I love beer. Sure. I love video. I love video games.
Oh, me too. I mean, the second we get off of this call, I'm gonna go back to Sniper Elite 4.
I keep hearing good things about it, man.
I guess it just came out like a couple days. I've had like the last couple of them, and I was like, the game is kind of like poorly acted. Not even such a great game. The maps are not anything special, but for some reason, it is so fucking addictive to shoot a guy from a mile away and see his brain blow out the back of his fucking head.
I'm gonna have to rent it out. I have a Red Box across the street, so whenever I'm like, I can't fully commit to the $60. I'm like, you know what? It's $4. I could play it for a couple hours, send it back.
Deal.
Yeah. I've been. Me and my girl are hooked, like insanely, unhealthily hooked to Final Fantasy 14 online.
Sure.
Realm Reborn.
I played it when it first came out, and like there was no content for it, and I was kind of like, yeah. I have a weird relationship with MMOs, but I just can't like. I've tried Warcraft. I've tried the Elder Scrolls one. I can't remember the Elder Scrolls Online, and I just can't commit to them. Like I just get bored. I just can't hang with them. I like to play a game and then move on. Like I just like for me it's game after game after game. It's not like sticking with any one of them.
Right. Well, I mean, I was like that for a long time. I spent 2 years in World of Warcraft.
Sure.
And then I spent about 2 years in Final Fantasy 11 when that came out.
Mm-hmm.
And then my girl and I played the Star Wars one for a bit, and when we also played the Elder Scrolls one, but I also got bored right away.
Knights of the Old Republic was actually the last one that I stuck with for any amount of time. When I hit 70, I was just like, all right, I'm out. But that took some time. That took like 6-7 months or something like that.
Yeah, man, it takes time, but there's that is an actual issue. And what ends up happening to us, which is what happened with Star Wars, it happened with Elder Scrolls, and it happened with Final Fantasy, is that you max out and there's no more content.
Right. Yeah.
So we end up quitting. We just got back into Final Fantasy. We played it when it first came out. We hit 50, and we were just grinding the same fucking dungeon on repeat.
Right.
Trying to get gear, and when I was like, I'm fucking done. That's it.
Tired of this shit. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I saw some. We let like 2 years pass, and I saw some videos of like the expansions and shit that they added.
Right.
And we started playing just for like. They gave us a free upgrade because we were playing it on the PlayStation 3. They were like, "Here's a free PlayStation 4 copy."
Oh.
And here's a free month of gameplay. I'm like, oh shit! Yeah. All right, let's.
And
play.
They lured you back in. It worked.
Yeah, and now I'm so fucking stupid hooked. And the other day, for the last 4 hours, I've been grinding, mining. So I'm just mining rocks, not like aimlessly and numb, just kind of like. Ging, ging, ging. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I doing this? And then my girl's like, well, you're mining because we need the materials so we can get better gear so we can do the final dungeon. I'm like, oh, all right, I guess. I guess let's do that. That sounds like fun.
That's the worst part, I think, about MMOs is that like you always get stuck at some point where it's just so repetitive. Like that's where I really start to lose interest. Like, I mean, there's been a lot of games that I really, really like where I get to a part where it starts getting repetitive. I'm like, even though I love this game, I don't have the fucking personal will to hash this out any longer. Like this has gotten as good as it's gonna get for me, and then I just quit on it.
Yeah. I mean, I've always grinded. I know growing up, Super Nintendo era, I was playing like the Final Fantasies back then, Final Fantasy VI, and I would grind the shit out of those games just to kind of like 100% it, sort of,
Sure.
in my own way, because it's not like there was achievements back then. I was just kind of like, nope, I want to max out every character and have every stat and whatever.
It was a size personal fucking
Yeah, personal achievements.
yeah.
So that's kind of continued through life. So I like the grind. It's cool. And in life and everything, just I like working.
Sure.
I like to stay busy. These last couple of weeks have been difficult for me since I haven't been working. I'm just kind of staying busy at home doing all this writing shit and trying to get lockdown episodes for the podcast and all that. And I can't just sit around. It fucking drives me nuts. Yeah. So
sure.
Grinding in a game like that, makes sense.
Yeah, it's a way to pass the time, I suppose.
I'm trying to think what else I had here for. I was just gonna talk any road stories if you had anything in like fun, crazy road stories.
Oh man, I've got a million of them. Fuck, man, there's been so many. The most recent one, I guess this isn't as crazy as some of the other ones I've had. I've had so many problems crossing the border into Canada. Like it's literally the worst fucking border crossing ever. And I got a DUI, like 5-6 years back. And so with this nails thing, we had 2 shows in Canada, and I was like, fuck, man, I got to figure this thing out. And so, I talked to Danny a little bit about it, and he told me about the TRP, a temporary resident permit, that you can get for like $200. But even a TRP does not guarantee you'll get into Canada. It will help, but it doesn't guarantee it. And so, after looking into that, another friend of mine, Michelle, from Panties, she told me she knew a lawyer who could get my record expunged. So basically she was like, talk to this guy. It's going to cost a lot, but it'll be off your record. You'll be able to get into Canada with no problems. You're not ever going to have to worry about it unless you ever fuck up again. So I went through all that, paid for it, got it. We get to the border, and we're playing all the shows, and all these nail shows are sold out. So they're like, all these shows are amazing. And I just didn't want to be the guy who got left in the States, like fucking biding his time in a hotel room for 2 to 3 days, like, being a total asshole. So we got there, and we're at the border, and a guy takes like all of our passports. Oh, actually, just before we get up to the border, our merch guy's like, he's like, do they worry about felonies? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, really? Is that good? That's something that might keep me out? I was like, oh yeah. Like, what are you talking about? And he was like, a breaking and entering from when I was a kid. And I was like, Jesus fuck, man. And it's just like, yeah, that's kind of something that might keep you out of Canada, and fucking, so we pull up, and like, he just told me that. So now I'm fucking freaked out, and I'm like, I'm not going to get in. And like, cause I've actually never been denied entry into Canada, but I've been detained for one time over 6 hours. So it was, it's been a nightmare, like at times going through there. There's only been one other time. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, so we get up there, and we're talking to this guy, and he's like, he's asking us, he's like, okay, which one of you guys has been to jail? And I'm like, I raised my hand. The other guy raises his hand. And he's like, when's the last time you've been fingerprinted? And I was like, what? Like, I don't know. And he starts asking us all these weird questions, like, where do you live? Where were you born? Where are you raised? Did you ever, what neighborhood? And like all this weird shit. And they're just like, what the fuck is this, like with this guy? And then he's holding on to our passports, and he just stops talking and just stands there for a solid like 30 seconds to a minute, just staring at the passports. He's not moving. He's just sitting there going, And I'm just like, fuck, I'm going to like go to jail or something right now. And then he just like turns, just like, all right, boys, have fun. And just like hands us our fucking passports back. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, dude. Like, I almost shit my pants in there,
That's ridiculous.
But yeah, I mean, Canada's the worst. That border, me and Danny have had a lot of fucking, the only other time where I ever got in that easy, and that was comparatively easy, was once when Intronaut went in. And as it turns out, I don't know if Sasha wants us getting out there, but he's a Canadian citizen. And we rolled up, handed him our passports, the guy just like took one look at Sasha and was like, "All right, boys, have fun. Don't get too drunk," and just fucking let us go. They always make the same fucking joke at the border every time. "All right, boys, now Canadian beer actually has alcohol in it, so take it easy, okay?" It's always the same fucking thing. As if there's no like breweries and microbreweries in California and everywhere else in the fucking states now. But
well, they don't come down here much. They go to Florida to avoid the fucking snow and shit.
Right. Snowbirds.
Fuck, that's crazy, dude. Yeah, I've seen Danny's posts and shit whenever he has to go to Canada. It's such a pain in the ass.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah, I've been very, very lucky, and considering my career choice,
Sure.
to not have been in a DUI, because that would kick you right out of the industry right away. If I would ever get a DUI, I'm done in the beer industry.
Wow, no shit.
Yeah, you're done. Nobody will hire you. If it were to happen while you're employed by a brewery, you're immediately fired. No questions asked.
Wow.
Like, yeah, no, like, hey, what happened? No, it's just, oh, cool, sign this paper.
That's it.
You're done. Yeah, because it's a matter of, I guess it's the responsibility of who you are, what you're doing out there representing a brewery. So it affects their personal image or their company image to have somebody employed that can't control themselves and get arrested for a DUI. You know what I mean?
Sorry about
that. No worries.
Hit the wrong button there.
Shit. So yeah, as I was saying, don't drink and drive. Even though that's impossible when you're in the beer industry,
yeah.
Especially if you're a sales representative, where your job is to go drink with these accounts. Really, like that's not your job. It's not in the description, but you're going and you're hanging out with, building these relationships with these accounts and sampling out your beers with them and stuff. So yeah.
I mean, basically that's why I have 3 or 4 different taxi and ride sharing apps on my phone these days.
Right. It's so important, and it's such a great, it's convenient. And then people always offering specials like, oh, here's a $50 free for a ride or something. Right. So it makes it easy.
Yeah.
But I've been very grateful and thankful that I've never been in that situation.
Hey, congratulations.
Yeah, right. And I mean, I've had some scary nights, dude. But
sure.
Thankfully, I always have the sense, the frame of mind to just be like, hey, I'm going to pull over at this gas station and nap.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to just nap over here under the lights, and then when I wake up, I'll be back to normal.
If you're a person who's got their wits about them, it only takes a scare before you're like, yeah, you know what, this is not something I should be doing.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've had multiple scares. I've lost friends to that. So, it's something that affects me personally. And considering that that's what I'm doing in the market is like, beer and driving around, it's a concern,
sure.
So I'm thankful that I've been able to pull away from any situation like that. Like the worst one I can think of, my band had played a show the night before Christmas in Miami. My family was in North Carolina, in Jacksonville, which was a 12-hour drive. So my family wanted me there for Christmas dinner because everybody had flown in and whatever, it was like a thing.
Sure.
And we played the show. We got out. We finished at like 1:30, 2 o'clock. And this was, in Miami at Churchill's, you're playing and you're getting wasted. Like that's just
sure. That's how it goes.
We were talking about earlier how bands don't like to get wasted before they go on stage. Well, Churchill's is the one place where you need to get wasted. You must get destroyed before you play because that place is, it's a whole universe. It's a separate universe.
Oh,
but
yeah. I've heard a lot about it. I've never actually played there.
Oh my god, dude! There's porno that's been filmed in there. It's the most out of control.
Yeah, Rick and John from Torch they had a lot of stories about that place.
Oh yeah, that's their home. We've played shows with them there years and years ago. It's been a while. We played the show. We got out of Churchill's at 2 o'clock in the morning. I get in my car and I'm like, guys, if I want to make it to North Carolina in time for dinner, I must go now. Yeah. So I started driving to North Carolina at 2 a.m. drunk after playing a show. I remember I drove from Miami to about Orlando when I decided it was 5 a.m. and I was dying.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm pulling over. I pulled over at a Denny's. I had some pancakes and fucking coffee. Went back to my car, and I passed out for like 2 hours. Went back on the road, kept having to take like breaks. Like, I need to stop because I'm gonna die.
Right.
And by the time I made it, it was 7:00 at night.
Oh, shit.
Christmas Eve, which is when my family does the Christmas celebration on Christmas Eve, because they're Cubans. So 7:00 at night, I park the car, I get out, I grab my nice button up, I fucking putting it on the way in. I walk in and food's on the table, everybody's sitting waiting. I'm like, oh my god, perfect timing. Shove a bunch of food in my face and then pass out on the floor in the living room, just kind of like, I did it. Oh shit. Well, all right, man. Thank you for doing this. Sure. I really appreciate your time and shit. And you guys will be back down here in April.
Yeah, April 1st at the Hi-Hat. I've never been there, so I'm not sure what it's all about, but I've seen a picture.
Smallest venue.
Is it? It's a small venue?
It is the smallest venue.
Really? Interesting. Huh. All right.
Yeah. Dillinger played there, and the place almost collapsed. So,
well, hopefully we can finish the job.
Yes. I look forward to it, man. Let's hang out. I'll bring beers,
Awesome.
And we'll I'll bring some fancy 12%ers for you.
Excellent, my favorite.
Some chocolate stouts. Anything you want to promote, plug, or say before we go? Like,
man, we've covered all of it. Yeah, we just got the Nails is touring in March. That's the next thing I got, and then we got Texas. We got a bunch of like one-offs after that, and that's Terrorize is playing in New Mexico and July 29th, and beyond that, that's keeping me pretty busy.
Nice. Any albums that you're working on in the future, like after tour?
Well, that Phobia album should be out at some point this year. We're just now getting around to mixing it and trying to sort out the fucking huge mess we caused over there. So that album should be out, I don't know, probably by May or something like that, I guess. But I don't actually know when it's really coming out, but it will be out this year.
Cool. Well, when I post the episode, I'll put some links to some of the stuff, but at Instagram at Nails Tyranny, or at Phobia. Does Phobia have one?
Probably. I don't know.
Usually what I end up doing with a lot of these bands, I Google the name of the band and I put Instagram, and I'll usually get their account. So Phobia Instagram, I'm probably at Phobia Band or something like that. But just look it up.
Like that, yeah.
I'll post it up, like I said, on the link with everything. Follow Leon's adventures on the road.
There you go. And I'm at Del Muerte, so
At Del Muerte,
yeah.
Can't go wrong. He is not a luchador.
That's right.
All right, man. Well, thanks for your time, dude. We'll hang in April for sure.
Cheers, man. I'll see you soon.
Cheers, dude.
Later.